And welcome in to another fun astrology podcast here on Thursday, March 26th. Thomas Miller in with you with another quick one today, but we are going to talk about the moon moving into Taurus, and because it's going to be square Saturn. Okay, let's take a step back, though, because I've been sitting with my little thesis of, is the macro bigger than the micro now? This was my theory in yesterday's podcast, so if you didn't hear that, you might go back and review that just to catch up on what I'm thinking. But yeah, the more I've been sitting with this over the last 24 hours, the more I'm kind of liking it. So we talked today about the moon moving into Taurus, which happens at 9:36 a.m. Eastern Time today. It's at 29 degrees as I'm recording this now, so it's just almost on the edge. And as it moves into Taurus, it will, by degrees, 0 degrees, as it crosses in, obviously square Saturn. And then it will also square Uranus in Taurus. And then by Saturday morning at 10:30 Eastern Time, it will have caught up with Venus and have conjuncted Venus as well. So being that there is so much macro energy right now, what am I talking about macro energy? And by the way, if you would like to go back and see what I did last fall on this, there are a couple of resources. You can go to soulfoodtalks.com and go to the Astrology shop. It's one of the tabs that you'll see up toward the top. And go download the Saturn-Pluto video that I recorded, goodness sakes, September, October last year. Maybe before that, I don't remember when I did it, but you can see what I was talking about relative to this. That's the big macro energy that we're talking about here. It's about 9 minutes long, not a big long thing. The other thing that Majana and I did is on our Facebook page for Subconscious Mind Mastery listeners. So if you go to Facebook and join the private group called Subconscious Mind Mastery Listeners, there's a video there that is about an hour long where I go through the history of this from a what shifted perspective. So the 8-minute video in Soul Food Talks was looking ahead from last fall when we had no idea of any of this. And the video in Facebook is a deeper dive on that now that we do know how this thing manifested, that where do we go from here, looking back at least at history. We don't know where this will go, obviously, but we can look back at history. And, of course, both of those are absolutely free, just putting more information out there for you to process and be able to deal with this on your own. The one thing that I am very aware of, and remember, I'm producing a local radio show in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's a weekly show, but it's underwritten by all the hospitals in town. So kind of an interesting position to be in, isn't it? Hello, have I not been in this conversation? Every day, multiple times. So I'm following this, but now it's, the shock and awe is kind of has happened. We're settling in. Everybody's probably, if you're listening to this, you are probably listening in some kind of request to stay at home. And, of course, that request is loosely. It might be just a request or it might be an order with some teeth in it. We've never been here before. It might also be affecting your income. It might be affecting the company that you may or may not be able to go back to. So I get it. The biggest shadow side of this is one that I really don't want to bring into the conversation, but that's the kids that are going to be not, the stories have already hit locally here and, certainly will hit nationally. And there are a lot of shadows to this. Saturn-Pluto is not pretty, and that's what those other videos talk about. But I think we are in such uncharted waters with this that yes, the planetary influences are still there, but I think rather we now have to look at the macro and then kind of observe the micro. Does that make sense? That's what I was saying yesterday. So if we go in and pick the chart apart like we normally would, we would talk about Pluto in Capricorn to start things off. Actually, we'd take Jupiter in Capricorn. Let's do that because that's at 23 degrees. When do they conjunct? Jupiter will conjunct Pluto Saturday, April 4th at 10:43 p.m. That will be there at 24 degrees Capricorn. Now that's the first of 3 times this year because of the retrogrades that those two will conjunct. So we'll get an idea this time of what the others might look like. And again, how does that, what I'm going to say is a micro event, fit into the macro event? Does that become a trigger of something? A lot of astrologers, and I would say that if you put the pieces of the puzzle together like you normally would, are saying that Jupiter will bring expansion to Pluto. Pluto rules viruses. And everybody in the health community is saying that over the next 2 or 3 weeks, of course, Saturday would be on the front end of that, is going to be the critical time when a lot of the exposure that's already happened multiplies. I don't know, guys. I don't know. But watch that. Observe. The other thing you could observe on a micro basis is, now Saturn, as you know, moved into Aquarius within the past week. Mars is sitting in between Pluto and Saturn. So Mars is now at 27 degrees. Mentioned this yesterday. It's equidistant between Saturn and Pluto. That is another little micro observation we can make. What does Mars look like in between Saturn and Pluto? And then the conjunction with Saturn itself, which takes place next Tuesday, March 31st at 2:31 p.m. So without going into the subtleties of the nodes and what they are aspected and everything right now, those are the micros that I would keep an eye on. So let's just review everything. So up in Capricorn, Jupiter 23 degrees, Pluto 24. We talked about that conjunction. Mars 27, Saturn 0 degrees Aquarius, right across the line. 0 degrees, 18 minutes. In Pisces, we have Mercury at 8 degrees, Neptune at 19 degrees. So in the next 2 weeks ahead, we'll be looking at a Mercury-Neptune conjunction. The Sun is still in Aries, 6 degrees now. Chiron is in Aries at 5 degrees. And then the Moon moves into Taurus this morning. It will be square to Saturn as it does, and then it will go chase down Uranus at 4 degrees and Venus on Saturday at 22. So those are the micros. Now the next thing we have to do is think about how do these fit into the macro, and that's where I think observation just has to be a part of this, because I think the macro is so strong right now that some of this will play out like it normally astrologically would, and some of it probably won't. Some of it will be overshadowed by the macro. So those are my thoughts. We'll see how it plays. Watch what happens when the moon moves into Taurus. And I'll see you tomorrow for TGI Friday. Take care. Stay safe. Please take this seriously. It is. Talk soon. Bye.